Hello everybody. We're gonna paint together this view from Madrid. This is the Latina neighborhood. The street goes down in this part and then goes up slowly goes uphill, and it's late in the day. The sun is already setting, and some parts of the city are already in the shadows, waiting for the night. And some high buildings like this church are still getting some light, some warm light, which is already like almost saying goodbye to the day and welcoming the night. And this is what we're going to paint. All right, I've started the drawing already. I just laid the basic construction of the church. This kind of tower, which is really typical in Madrid. And as you can see, I have placed it in more or less the left third of the painting. I always position the main actors of any painting in either the left top, the third top, the third bottom, or the third left or third right. If you divide the paper in thirds, let's say, whenever you position any interest object in one of the intersection points of those lines, you normally get a composition that works. Don't ask me why. It's something that our eye kind of likes. We don't really like symmetrical compositions. I mean, if you can of course paint like that, but it's somehow if you position your main actors in one of these intersection points that I'm saying, it normally works. So in this case, I think it's a clear case where that could work, and I did it like that. As you can see, I am just I am not adding too many details. I am just more or less laying out the structure of the view into the paper. I The point is not to be too detailed, but to be accurate on the layout of the different objects in relation to each other, right? And I will just add some detail. I am careful to have to paint the structure of the church in a proper way, so that it's in the right proportions. The perspective lines are well laid out, so it doesn't look fuzzy afterwards. And it's important just to be accurate in certain parts of this geometry, let's say, because afterwards we're gonna have to paint shadows that have to go really along that geometry in order to show the three-dimensionality of this object. But that's what I'm doing. It's just laying the geometry of the object in a proper way, but without being too detailed. I don't want to tell everything with this drawing. I just want to lay out everything in the right place, and that's it. All right, this is more or less done. um, I might just correct this, the top of this building. It feels a little bit tilted towards the right, so I'm just gonna correct it. I always use this kind of soft rubber, let's say, eraser, sorry. This is a soft eraser. It works really well with pencil lines. You can get mostly anything out of the paper without hurting it. Sometimes things are a little bit off and you don't realize when you're drawing. So a good tip to know when drawing is well proportioned is to go with the drawing to the mirror, and if you put it in front of the mirror, you will immediately see what doesn't work. Another good thing is to make a picture of it. All right, now we're gonna start. We're gonna start to paint. We're gonna start using the watercolors. I cleaned my palette, and something that I also did was to wet all the watercolors. I always wet them before starting, because if not, it's gonna be hard for me to take the right amount of pigment out of it. So always wet your watercolors first, okay? I'm gonna make the sky. I'm gonna use some cobalt blue on top of the painting, and then I'm gonna go slowly towards the down part of the lower part of the paper, using mostly yellow ochre. I'm gonna make a gradation between a slow transition between the cobalt blue and the yellow ochre. I use this mix a lot for skies. It's great for late the day, like when you want to show this kind of it's the end of the day, the sun is almost out, and when I'm doing this kind of paintings, I mostly all the time use cobalt blue and yellow ochre, or it could be a different yellow. Sometimes I use isoandolin yellow, but this time I'm gonna use yellow ochre. Now I will start warming up a little bit the mixer. I'm gonna add some quinacridone orange. I always use this color also when there's this kind of mood, the end of the day. It's a really warm, kind of yellow orange, let's say, and it's really good for me to just to warm up a little bit the light in the building area, no, where the sun rays are hitting. And now I will use a little bit of cobalt blue and alizarin crimson to make a kind of like a purple-ish mixture, um, just to cool the area, which is not hit by any kind of light right now. It's already in the shadows. also give some texture to the areas which are in the light. This is just the first layer, which is basically we're painting the light, we're painting the atmospheric light of the painting, let's say. So it's an atmospheric approach. It's not about setting up the shadows in any specific way. It's just about giving the mood of the general light of the painting. And as I said, I'm just getting some texture now. You can spray water, you can spray some drops with paint like I'm doing here. I just took some orange and I am using the brush to let some drops of water go to the painting, and those will open in the painting and will give a little bit of texture to these areas. Try to have fun. Now I will dry the paper a little bit. I just dried it a little bit. I still want to lift some paint, particularly where the building is most lit by the light, and also to create some texture here. So I just dry the paper a little bit in order so that when I use the tissue paper I will lift everything, just a little bit. I'm gonna start adding some details, but the paper is still not completely dry. I just wanna get some texture in some parts of and some suggestion of details in some parts of the painting. But kind of in an atmospheric way. The paper is still not completely dry, okay? I just use the hair dryer just to dry it a little bit so that when I go with the paint on it now, it still opens a little bit, but it's not completely wet, because if not it wouldn't work. Again, these are just some atmospheric details. I'm not gonna work on the details yet. I will do it later. For this mixture, I use some blue and some burnt sienna. Just a little bit of burnt sienna to kind of make it a little bit not as blue as it could be. And now I am creating a mixture with some Perilene green and some ultra blue and a little bit of quinacridone orange in order to make kind of like a gray that tips a little bit to green, kind of, because there's some vegetation in the lower part of the composition, and I just want to show it kind of in an atmospheric way. Again, I'm not doing details, I'm just kind of adding texture right now. Okay, now I will dry the paper. I will dry the paper now to start adding shadows. Okay, now the paper is completely dry, and now I'm just gonna go over the building again with a light color. I'm gonna use the quinacridone orange again to make the building. This building is illuminated by light, and it's kind of like a really warm orange light. So I'm gonna paint that light color on the building, and I will go with the shadows later. Okay. Um, so I'm gonna try to avoid certain lines that are defined by the architectonical details of this building. I won't paint a closed shape. I will just paint leaving some small gaps here and there that show that there are architectural features that need to be showcased, no, in this painting. If I just go with the green over the whole building, then I will lose many details that I will be able only to get them afterwards if I use a liner, if I use a dark paint. But sometimes details are not necessarily dark. Sometimes an architectural detail is just an area that is lighter than the rest. So I really like when I'm working architecture like this. I like leaving some unpainted areas, some unpainted lines, let's say, that help me define the shape of what I'm painting. If I just go with the paint all over it, I will lose many architectural details that are important to understand what I'm talking about here. And also, leaving unpainted areas kind of gives a lot of vibrancy and a movement to the painting that I always really fond of. Something to also keep in mind is as you paint, try always to change a little bit the mixture that you're using to on the paper, because objects are normally never completely color even, let's say, like shadows, and all objects receive light that kind of bounce from objects which are illuminated next to them. So there's always like a lot of variance between colors on the same shape, because light is not a linear thing. Light bounces and bounces back and illuminates back, and it's kind of it's alive. So you can't really, and there's also atmospheric contamination, atmospheric blur sometimes, which will always affect how things are perceived and seen. So try always to change a little bit the mixture of your washes when as you go, because that way it will look more realistic. And also sometimes the transition between an illuminated and an illuminated area and an area which is in the shadow, it's really soft. So um, letting the colors blend on the paper is always something that you have to bear in mind in order to create, let's say, realistic transitions or pleasant transitions. Now I'm gonna paint some of the vegetation which is here. So I'm gonna use again the mixture that I prepared before, the one that had some perylene green and some quinacridone orange and some blue, which kind of creates a gray that tips a little bit to green. I'm mostly all the time using the same colors. I'm just adding a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that in order to make um, a really non-saturated mixture that tips sometimes to orange, sometimes to blue, sometimes to purple, sometimes to a little bit towards green. So I am creating an even composition, even color composition, um, with let's say an atmosphere that more or less works well because I am using basically the same colors mostly everywhere. I am just changing, varying them slightly from here to there in order to create a different kind of atmosphere. I will later maybe add some more saturated colors here and there because I want maybe to enhance the aspect of or the materiality of the church. And if when you create not too saturated painting and then you add color and saturated colors here and there, closer to to the focus of the painting, and you create more interest in the areas which are more saturated. So always bear in mind that you can play with that. You can play with the saturation of color. You can play with contrast. You can play with complementary colors. You can play with many things in order to bring attention wherever you want. Now I'm gonna paint a little bit the roof of this church, which is kind of, it's a gray that tips blue. It's a dark blue, and you know, like the orange layer that I did before is just I was painting the light. Now it's time to start painting a little bit about the materiality of the things as they really look, right? So I will paint this roof blue, and I will just vary the composition of the mixture. I will vary the intensity of the mixture. For example, in this layer here, this part of the roof, light is hitting more than the rest of the roof, so it needs to be lighter. And as before, I am gonna leave some edges unpainted. This roof has different faces with different orientations, and if I want to show that there's a change in direction and so there's a change in in orientation, it's good for me to leave some parts of the edge unpainted, because it will show afterwards. Your eye will tell you that there's a change in orientation here. You see how I am doing here. You don't need to leave the whole edge unpainted, but if you leave some parts of most of it unpainted, then you're clearly showing that there's a change in direction there. And this is like this with many architectonical details. You don't have to do it like this, but it's just a technique that I use in order to help me leave some of the structure of the whatever building I'm painting as clearly seen on the painting, because if you go with the paint all over it, you might lose some of the structure of the building behind it. Now I'm gonna start working the shadows of the painting, and for that I will use the same mixture of ultra blue and burnt sienna, which is depending on how much paint and how much water you use and how much blue and how much burnt. You can you can create a darker mixture, you can create a mixture that tips to blue, you can create a mixture that tips a little bit more to brown, and you can play with that in order to create dramatic shadows, subtle shadows, just what you need, okay? It's important in this phase to be precise, let's say, because these are what shape, these shadows are what shape what will bring to light the architectonical details of this building. So you have to be careful to put the shadows where you need. You don't need to be too detailed, but you need to be precise in trying to showcase the main shapes of the building. Also bear in mind that shadows are not uniform, let's say. They have different colors on it, they have light that bounces back to them, and sometimes the edge of a shadow is really sharp, sometimes the edge of a shadow is really soft. So you see, I'm playing constantly with this idea by softening certain edges, leaving some edges a little bit more sharp, let's say, and that way you can create shadows that have some, let's say, expressivity in them. If not, you will create a dull image, or you will create a really hard image that won't sing to you, to the viewer, no? And you have to try to play always with a variety of tools, sharp edges, soft edges, and these kind of things. Now, with even a darker mixture of the ultra blue and the burnt sienna, I am going to add some more details to the building, and to maybe darken some parts of the shadow that are already laid before, like this roof face, for example. You see how once they start adding these darker details, the illuminated areas start to sing. They start to look more alive. No, like there's a more vibrancy in the painting. There's more contrast, so it starts to work better. And yeah, this is a part of the painting process that I really like. When I start adding details to the building, because the painting starts to sing. It's a really beautiful face. So try to enjoy it. Now I'm going to add, I just picked a little bit of Pyrrole Scarlet. I want to add some texture to the building because this is made by red bricks, and these bricks have a lot of color. So this way I can also get more attention from from the viewers to this part of the painting, which is like the part that I really want to act as a main actor of this painting. So you see that I am adding this paint, this saturated color mixture with like using the with this kind of brush strokes that are like I'm just using the almost parallel to the painting and using the brush in this kind of tilted fashion. So it serves me to just add a little bit of texture to the red bricks, to the roof, to the roofings, to different kind of materials that are here that have this red really present in them. And I am using a thick mixture of paint. It is not so wet, and that way it kind of like it just plays itself on top of the previous layers. And sometimes I just add this layer, and then I lift a little bit with a tissue, like this, because I'm just adding texture. It has to feel like texture. It doesn't have to feel like a flat layer of paint. I'm just adding texture right now. I'm going to add a little bit more details now with the dark mixture of ultra blue and burnt sienna. It feels like it needs more details. I'm gonna work a little bit. The windows of these buildings are in the shadow, so I'm just gonna place them. Also, the fact that I'm adding some dark details, not only in the main building but also some other parts of the painting, it will draw the viewer's attention to these parts of the painting as well, so that it's you want to have a main actor, but you also need to have some areas which compensate a little bit, um, or play with the main actor in order for the viewer to travel a little bit around the painting. And by adding, most of the details are in the church, but by adding some other areas with some details, the viewer will kind of like travel with all around the painting, and all they won't only look to the main actor, let's say. Now I want to darken a little bit more the roof of the building. There's so many these kind of rooftops, these kind of towers. There are a lot of in the city, and they have mm, many different architectonical details, and they're geometrically they are not easy to draw sometimes, no. But by adding these dark details in what I'm doing right now, I'm gonna make it pop, let's say. I'm gonna enhance the three dimensionality of it. Now, as I did with the bricks, I'm gonna add some texture to the roof, because these roofs are made out of black tiles. Okay, so I'm using the brush in this kind of tilted fashion, and that's it. I just added some texture to the roof, you know, and as easy as that. You don't really need to go too crazy in order to create the illusion of certain materiality, certain materials, certain textures. You just need to suggest them. So that's what I did. Now, in this part of the city, there are also many trees, and when you're looking at this view, it's normal to have a tree on top of you. So I'm creating a mixer with ultra blue and the perylene green in order to I'm gonna draw a tree in front of the building. This will also help give a lot of depth to the painting, because the tree will look darker, let's say, will be like closer to us. So yeah, this is something that normally works, you know, when you have an object which is closer to you, and you can use it to make also to balance to balance the composition, but also to create some depth. Okay, so I won't be detailed with when painting this tree. I am just gonna kind of create the illusion of some leaves in some parts, and then the rest is gonna be I'm gonna use the brush as I did with the texture before in this tilted fashion, and I'm just gonna scrap the paper with it, you know, like this. The mixture of paint is kind of thick. It is not really it is not too much water in it, and this way I can, you know, like play like this in order to create this illusion of vegetation. Some parts of the tree you can paint them like that, just like I did before, like just in this tilted fashion and without too much care, just creating a texture. But it's also good if every now and then you paint with a little bit more care what it look like, what can look like leaves, no? So here you can combine different techniques. You can be not too detailed, like with the tilted brush strokes, and then be a little bit detailed, add a little bit more detail here and there. Right now I'm using a brush which we could call a rigger brush, and in order to create some branches, some lines that resemble a branch, and this I paint without thinking too much where these lines are going, you know, like if you get the brush in this kind of perpendicular way to the paper, and you let it more or less, you move your hand and you let the brush follow it, and you stop here and there, you can create the illusion of branches in a not so complicated way. I was going to take the tape off, but I think I'm gonna add a little bit more details with the liner. It is not really necessary, but sometimes I like adding some details using either a fountain pen or a liner because it's there's no why, because I just like it. Let's say it's not really necessary. I'm an architect and I used to paint to draw a lot using a fountain pen. And when I started painting watercolors, I used to make first like a drawing using a fountain pen, and then we'll go with the watercolor afterwards. I was really in this kind of more like a urban sketching way, and I still like doing this kind of details afterwards. When you combine a fountain pen or a liner with a watercolor, it really shows, and it's also a great way to create some vibrancy here and there. Um, I just try to use the liner to enhance certain shadows, let's say linear shadows. I don't use it to draw the outline of any object like I will do maybe in the past. No, I just, if there's an area with a really dark shadow, then maybe it's a good place to use the liner to enhance it. I don't want to go all over the painting. I just want to enhance certain areas of it to create some vibrancy and a little bit more contrast here and there. Okay, I'm just gonna add a few more details and this is done. Now it's time to take the tape out. This is one of my favorite parts in any watercolor, because when you take the tape out, the painting suddenly sings, let's say. There's a certain beauty in seeing the painting with this white, clear edge. It makes it pop. Okay, this is it. I hope that you enjoyed the tutorial. I hope that you learned something with me. If you learned something with me, I'm really happy. I'm happy to share with you my process, and I hope that you find it helpful. So see you soon and have a nice one. Ciao.